This is the Washington Times front page for Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. Omicron, the latest COVID-19 variant, features a myriad of mutations suggesting it will spread faster and defy vaccines to some degree, but scientists aren't hitting the panic button just yet. It might take 2 weeks for scientists to put the Omicron puzzle together, Tom Howe reports, but some pieces are falling into place. While there are signs Omicron is highly contagious, a doctor who treated some of the earliest patients in South Africa said she didn't see anything that dire. Those patients were exhausted, and a 6-year-old had a rapid heart rate, but they didn't lose their sense of taste or smell. The biggest fear is that Omicron will invade immunity from vaccines that are considered the primary defense against COVID-19. Scientists said it's unlikely that Omicron will slip by the vaccines completely, given the shot's history of staving off previous variants. President Biden has announced several steps to address the supply chain crisis dating back to August, but stores are scrambling to keep shelves stocked and prices are rising, with experts saying the problems could persist for at least another year. Dave Boyer reports the administration said it convinced port operators to waive fees for night and weekend pickup and persuaded another company to discount its night and weekend shipping rates. In addition, the Department of Transportation will extend the number of hours truck drivers can work until the end of February. Yet the supply chain crisis continues to loom over the president as Americans have become frustrated with shortages and the highest inflation in more than 30 years. When Biden made his first major speech on the supply chain bottleneck in October, the U.S. rate of inflation was 5.4%. By Monday, it had swelled to 6.2%. Fueled partially by the shortages that have hiked prices across the nation. Expect plenty of opinions this week at the Supreme Court when demonstrators converge for rallies during oral arguments on a Mississippi abortion law that could upend Roe v. Wade. Valerie Richardson reports the Women's March plans to encircle the Supreme Court with volunteers shortly after a 4-hour pro-life gathering featuring speeches from members of Congress. Other events include an early morning Abortion is Essential rally sponsored by pro-choice groups, including the Center for Reproductive Rights, the National Abortion Access Coalition, and Planned Parenthood. The rallies come with the justices scheduled to consider a 2018 Mississippi law barring most abortions after 15 weeks gestation in a case that both sides agree poses a threat to the 1973 Roe ruling that made abortion a federal constitutional right. A reminder that you can find all these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. If you don't have access to the Times yet, you can visit WashingtonTimes.com/George for a special subscription offer. Iran refused to meet face-to-face with American diplomats as talks over the Islamic Republic's suspect nuclear programs resumed in Vienna, Austria, following a 5-month hiatus. While U.S. officials say time is short for Iran to bring its uranium enrichment activities back into compliance with limits set by the 2015 nuclear deal, Guy Taylor and Dave Sands report the Biden administration is clinging to hopes Iran will soften its posture and rejoin the agreement. Critics say that's a long shot at best because the Iranians are demanding the U.S. make a major concession to get talks rolling. One of those concessions requested specifically would be freeing up billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets. And finally, the Pentagon will invest heavily in military construction across the Pacific while updating existing facilities in Guam and Australia. Ben Wolfgang reports the announcements offer the first broad glimpses of the military's unfolding effort to redirect equipment and personnel to counter a growing threat posed by China. Defense officials made clear that resources need to be moved from the Middle East and elsewhere toward the Pacific. That broad pivot toward China was a policy priority of former Presidents Barack Obama and Donald Trump and has been continued in many ways by President Biden. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms just by searching Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at WashTimes for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.